Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Mr. Christopher Funkhouser.
Hello, Norm. Good to see you again.
Chris, nice to see you.
Usually you're on your front porch when I see you.
Usually you're on a bicycle wearing spandex of some sort. And I'm like, he doesn't wear those spandex shorts into the classroom, I'll bet.
Not lately. No.
And while we're here, is biking a new thing for you?
No, not at all. Actually, I've been riding my bike for 40 plus years.
So like your whole adult life and some of your youth, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I did triathlons back in my high school days and kept that up through college. And I was a runner primarily at university and in high school also.
Long distance events?
Middle distance. And then in college, I did the decathlon,
Wow.
which is a multi-event
Right.
type of endeavor. But when I turned 50, which is right when I moved to Rhinebeck, two doctors said I couldn't run anymore.
Oh, no.
And so that, getting older type stuff. Plus, I had punished my body pretty badly earlier in life. And I had been warned at the time that, if you train with this intensity when you're in your 40s, you could start feeling that. And that happened. But the biking is not a problem at all. So, plus this is a beautiful area to ride. And plus we had a pandemic and there was basically not a whole lot else to do.
And so do you have a typical route for your bicycling?
I have a few good ones.
Yeah.
My favorite ones involved non-numbered roads.
Smart.
And so that when we lived up by Cedar Heights Orchard, I had a 12-mile ride that I could take that was no numbered roads, which is like out around the aerodrome and then some gravel over by the old town dump and whatnot. So that's good. And this road that we're on right here is one of my favorite roads around Mill Road and Rhinecliff.
Right.
I love River Road, and I like Red Hook these days because it's flat. That's the place that I go when I really want to ride, but I don't want to suffer too bad.
Yeah, and I live in the village. I ride my bike around the village, and when I'm going into town, it's ever so slightly downhill on South Street. And on the way back, it's really ever so slightly uphill. I'm like,
You notice, yeah.
Are there hills that you encounter? Do you ever get off your bike and walk it because the hills are too steep?
I haven't, although I remember 2 or 3 years ago when we were in a couple of years we lived in Connecticut, I did go up a very long steep hill and I didn't get off and walk. I just turned around after I'm almost all the way to the top, and that was enough. I do like to exercise and physical activity and just being outside, but it's not I haven't done any competitive athletics in a long time, and so it's not I do this to be, anything but just keep myself fit. And so
Right.
I don't have to push myself. I don't have to go into heavy duty aerobic. No, I don't. I do this because I like it, and I've learned how to do it and so on.
Do you have any of those apps that keep track of sort of your route and how far you've gone and how long it took you and all that stuff?
I use Strava since the beginning of last year.
Right.
But before that, I used to just map my rides and keep a log in Microsoft Word. So Strava is a lot better. I like it.
Yeah. I used Strava a few years ago for kayaking. It's really nice. And do you listen to music when you're biking?
Absolutely not. No, I don't. I don't listen to music doing almost anything because I'm sort of the John Cage version, like the whole world is a concert. And I do follow the quantum listening practices of Pauline Oliveros. So I'm trying to listen to ambient sounds all the time, and I catch myself when I'm not listening to them and make myself listen to them. And this is really enriches things for me quite a bit. For instance, a couple days I live. I know you're going to ask me about why I'm in Rhinebeck and all this stuff, but I live right on the Rhinebeck town line, south of it, in Staatsburg, but my backyard is the Hopeland Trails. So I was out there a couple days ago, and there was and it was stark and cold, nobody around, but there were two owls just having at it with each other, singing. And I taped it because I brought my field recorder, and it was just like, that's all I need.
Right.
So on the bike, I think if you listen while you're riding your bike, especially at the volume I do it, it's dangerous.
Right. Right. So you mentioned Pauline Oliveros. What were the listening practices of hers that you referred to?
Well, I'm just basically talking about a book that was somewhat recently published called Quantum Listening, and her argument or her position is that you just you can be receptive at all times. I mean, right now I'm not able to pay attention to anything but you and I talking, really, but walking outside or being in a store or whatever, there's lots of ambient sounds. And
Right.
in my house, the tub makes a crazy sound. Like, so if I take a shower afterwards, the draining mechanism going through the floors and whatnot, it's like a crazy outside music event, and I sometimes record them too.
Right. I love that. Well, now you say the owls are enough for you often, and these incidental noises, the John Cagean, awake to the symphonies of the spheres. But you're in the noise making business. You make beautiful music.
Well, thanks. Yes, that's true. Thankfully, I have been able to, over the past 8 years, I believe, have musicians to collaborate here in the area. And we did, in fact, start as a noise band, like a really thrashy two bass and drums situation that has evolved over time. So now, I guess more politely, it's called ambient music, although we're not opposed to making noise within the ambient atmosphere. But we also have a great connection, I think, with that group with nature, especially once the pandemic happened and we had to start playing shows outside and rehearsing outside. I just started setting up a nice condenser microphone to catch the nature who we would play along with. We've done this any number of times. So it's like, is that noise? I don't know. What is noise? I mean, noise, maybe we can quantify noise, but it maybe it's all noise. I happen to have tinnitus, so I can't stop my ears from ringing. I can just not pay attention to them ringing. So even silence is semi-noisy.
Wow. And when did that start?
Not too long ago. It was maybe about 2.5 years ago. I just woke up one day and my ears were ringing. I haven't stopped. And that was it did coincide with the passing of someone I knew and respected and worked with, a collaborator. And so I just kind of took that as somehow these things are united. But at any rate, it doesn't bother me too much to tell you the truth, but it could.
But united in what way? Sort of the stress of the passing manifesting as this tinnitus in your...
I have no idea why these things happen. It's like a lot of medical things. You just...
Do you believe in ghosts?
Well, sometimes.
Right? I mean, the idea that this is the...
spirits, for sure.
Yeah, the spirit of your departed collaborator.
Yeah. And I think about this guy all the time. And just today, this morning, I received an advance PDF of a book, a bilingual book of his being published in Brazil with a photograph of mine in it. So yeah, things remind me of that. And this fellow that I'm talking about, his name is Peter Lamborn Wilson. You may have encountered him over in Woodstock. He also lived in New Paltz and before that, New York City. But someone I met many years ago, 30 plus years ago, and interesting writer who I ended up making many recordings of. He and I recorded 600 of his poems in Woodstock in 2015. So someone I had a close connection with, and very sort of, I don't know what to say, a great esoteric researcher who lived a great life, and whatever.
600 of his poems.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. So you recorded them. Did you put them to music or sounds of nature or
Well,
nothing?
since about 15 or so years ago, I've been an editor at Penn Sound. And Penn Sound is the world's largest archive of poets reading their own work. It's housed at the University of Pennsylvania. And so that project went directly to Penn Sound. That led to another project with another local writer, and that led to another project with another local writer. So one of the things that I do and have spent a lot of time doing since moving to Rhinebeck in this area is these lengthy, exhaustive recording projects with poets. And there are a lot of reasons why I value it. I learn a lot from it, and I think it's good since I have the interest and privilege to do such things and also access to a venue like Penn Sound, then yeah, why not? I enjoy doing it. There's nothing stranger than to just sit in a room with someone and record poems and listen to them and, correct them if they make mistakes and whatever I'm doing. The biggest project I'm doing, it's still ongoing, is with an author in Barrytown named George Quasha, and he has a series of poems that's it's so big, it's huge project. He and I have been working 7 years to record these preverbs, and I don't even think we're half done yet.
Preverbs.
That's what he calls them. Yes, preverbs.
Okay.
And Quasha,
Like proverbs, but earlier.
well, there's a lot to the preverbs, but he and I have this page on Penn Sound, and so people can go listen to something like 40 hours worth of his material as well.
And do you go to his place to do this? And what kind of equipment do you have?
Yes, we recorded all of his sessions in Barrytown. He lives in a very nice space with it's an octagonal mandala room, mandala painted on the floor, and really good energy. A lot of great people have passed through, and I use Ableton Live on a laptop, and I have good mics and all the things you need to do that. But it's something I can carry around in a backpack, which makes it a lot easier.
Right.
You can have a great recording studio with just a few pieces of equipment, audio interface, and you don't need to know all the technical stuff, right?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
So you're creating an enormous amount of files and that need to be stored somewhere. You send it to Penn Sound. Do you keep copies of all the stuff yourself?
Yes, of course. And I have another rogue archive that I keep of my own work that's not really relevant to Penn Sound. This could be ambient recordings of nature or bootlegs I make over tubbies and one of my big projects this year, and this is very strange, but it's cool too, is I've been recording not every day but many days the Amtrak running down by my house, rolling by, and then somebody gave me this idea late last year. Oh, you should record the train. So I've been doing that. So some of the train recordings there, and also just bootlegs of this and that.
So it's the train rumbling by. You hear the engine. You hear the tracks, the weight of the train on the tracks. You hear the speed. What are some of the surprising things that you've heard when you started really tuning into that? If any.
Well, there are. Well, first of all, if it's summer and there's lots of leaves, the train sounds completely different than
Right.
it does when there are no leaves. And depending where I'm standing, and now I have foraged my own pathways. I live about a 10-minute walk up from the river, but there's no roads that go down there. But I have some, bushwhacking trails that I go down, and depending on where I stand, there's bridges there that are, if I can get above the train, I can get beside, 30, 40 feet to the side of the tracks. And there's a lot of different techniques, but I don't, plus the recorder has different settings. And, so things I've learned, that's hard to say, but certainly that time of year makes a difference in how things sound. That would probably be the number one thing, at least the first thing that comes to my mind.
Right.
And just variation, like because there's a little waterfall down there. If I stand next to that, I can get the waterfall sound in the train. There's always birds. There's boats on the river. There's all kinds. It's different every time. That's a thing. You might think it sounds the same every time, but if you stop and you're listening carefully, as I am, because I'm not always, but sometimes at least monitoring the recordings in real time, so that makes me really even focus more closely in on what's happening.
Right.
So it's stimulating enough that I keep doing it. Like if it had, I wouldn't just do this for the sake of doing. And if we.
For what sake are you doing it then?
Oh, that's good. That's what I was about to say.
Oh,
You're
sorry.
telepathic there, Norm. I do a radio program myself on WGXC, Acre, Catskill, Hudson Community Radio. And starting January 1st, and it's a monthly program. It's the last third Thursday of every week, every month.
People tune in online, WGXC.org.
Right.
Okay.
And it's also a 90.7 FM, which you can get basically to Red Hook before the signal runs out. But starting the beginning of this year, I bookend all of my programs with these train recordings, different ones. So now we've done 11 shows. So 22 of the train recordings can be heard as part of the radio program. And it's fun, the thing. Now we're really getting into minutiae, but having to pick the ones that go on.
Yeah.
That's sort of like fun, like because sometimes, mostly more recently, I think there are hunters down there below Wilderstein in the monasteries now. They let people hunt down there, so I think there are people walking on the tracks a bit more. So I'm hearing more of the horns of the train. Usually they just roll by until they hit downtown Statsburg, and then the horn goes off like crazy. But in any case, I kind of sometimes it depends on the content of the show which ones I sometimes that's a nice long steady bit of train. Sometimes I hear the honking, and there's also the train tracks on the other side of the river there, and I can hear those trains.
Yeah,
sometimes they're going back and forth and whatever. It's just a.
So when you say long, what is a long recording for you of train?
Oh, like 45 seconds. I mean, It's not usually the ones that get on the air, or the parts that you hear mostly on the air, are 15, 20 seconds. But sometimes I'll have a long recording going in the background, ambient recording. Anyway, the train will roll by, but I still record another 2 minutes. I'll just let that go.
And do you ever just go right down, put your recorder on the tracks?
Yeah, that's funny. No, you can't put anything on the tracks. A train will destroy it.
Well, I mean, not when the train's there, but when the train's going, you can still hear the vibration on the tracks.
Oh, that's a really good idea. Now I hear what you're saying. Like if it goes by, if it's going north toward Rhinecliff, then I could just put it on the track, and I could.
When I was a kid, you saw in all these old westerns, people would put their ear on the railroad track, say, "Oh, it's coming." Before they could see it, they could hear the vibration on the track. And so as soon as I went and put my ear on the railroad track near where I grew up. And sure enough, you could hear these things.
Yeah. No, I haven't done that. That sounds great. I like that idea. I mean, I've gotten used to hearing, even though despite the tinnitus, I do have good hearing, and I can hear the train the frequency of the sound usually from pretty far away.
Right. Have you ever, you create a lot of music and a lot of sounds and collect a lot of sounds. Have you ever tried to replicate for the outside world what your tinnitus sounds like?
No, I have not, but I take that as a challenge.
Good.
I mean, I don't know what I haven't. It's a weird thing. I went to 3 different ear doctors, and they gave me all kinds of tests. And the fact of the matter is, they really don't know as much about it as that you'd think that they would.
Yeah.
So, I had these ear tests with the different frequencies and things. So I have a little time. I'm going to go embark upon that task.
Oh, good.
And it's probably
Would love to hear it.
It's probably there. I have I mean, Navarez plays a keyboard, and I bet you we could get close to.
This is Leonard Navarez, your bandmate.
Yes, right, right.
And fellow professor.
Yes, that's right, too.
He was here in the show a couple of years ago.
I remember hearing it. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear that. It reminds me, I had a detached retina a number of years ago, and they stick a needle in your eye, which is ever so fun, and they put bubbles in there, and then you have to hold your head at a certain angle, and the bubbles, the air bubbles, push the retina back into place. And they drew on my forehead with a big magic marker, like a Sharpie. The arrow said, "Hold your head," so that's pointing up. But I sketched the bubbles for the eye doctor. I thought, oh, this retina doctor will be really stoked to see that. I'm like, here's what the bubbles look like. He's like, all right, whatever. Just
sounds like Norm Magnusson, something you would do.
Didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it seemed like something that you would do, and now you've accepted the challenge. Can't wait to hear what your tinnitus sounds like. It's happening now, I'm guessing.
I'm not paying attention to it, but it's happening.
So, which is a beautiful thing, that the mind can stop hearing things that it doesn't want to hear.
Yes, yes. I could go. I didn't realize we were going to be talking about this condition, but there are a couple things that come to mind that I could say. And one is that out where we live, which is in the forest, I noticed summer of 2023 that on a summer night, you will generally, if you really try to pick apart what you're hearing at night, you'll hear peepers, you'll hear cicadas, you'll hear other tree frogs and crickets. So there's at least 3 or 4, sometimes 5 different unique layers of sound if you're falling asleep and you're really like, you can do this. And I noticed that my tinnitus got a lot better in August, September, October last year, and again this year, because there was all these other sounds that sort of, I felt like, unraveled whatever the tinnitus was. So that's one thing, and that was, that's not a medical thing. That was just my own, physiological experience.
Right, but if the tinnitus is the ghost of your deceased collaborator,
yeah, I was probably just happy I was listening to all that crazy sound, because those sounds. Everybody knows in this area knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, they're so beautiful.
And but we almost, it just is a thing. It is what it is. And the other thing is, a lot of people do use hypnosis to try to solve tinnitus, and that sort of hypnosis will help you drift away from the ongoing sound. I have a meditation practice that I would say probably helps with this also, or at least it helps me stay focused on my breath rather than my ears when I need to. So I don't, this tinnitus, it's not going to go away. I can just figure out how to live with it, and so far so good.
But it could go away, I guess.
Could. I don't know.
And are you fairly disciplined with your meditation practice?
Zazen every day since 1992 February. So yeah, I'd say.
And what happened in January or early February that had you start doing that?
Well, I went to Naropa Institute in 1986, which is the only.
So are you practicing Buddhist as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I went there and I had introduction. I was introduced to meditation practice, and then I went back to work a little bit at Naropa a few years later, and I got very integrated with the Dharma there, and that was my summer job was setting up the meditation room at Naropa. Then so I knew about this, but it was a real discipline to come to it, full on. Took a lot of just making myself do it. But what happened was I was living in Santa Cruz in 1992, and I started going to the Zen Center there, and I really liked the people quite a bit, and the woman who was the head monk, if you will, she made a good impression on me, and she got me involved with playing the Makugyo at the morning, 6 a.m. sessions, and So I loved that. And then when I left Santa Cruz, I think part of the ongoingness of it was just to keep that feeling with me, and that was many years ago now. So
Right.
and it's
Nice.
something now it's no choice. I just it's such a special part of my life. It's the first thing in the morning. Just helps set the everything right.
And for how long?
Generally about 30 minutes,
Okay.
especially, I mean, there's ritual that happens around it as well. So yeah, half an hour that's
Uh-huh. And can I ask, what is the ritual? What is the other stuff that happens around the meditation?
well, there's, the shrine and the preparation, incense,
Oh, right, the
candles.
Buddhist stuff.
There's ringing the rin gong before, and then there's the rin gong and chanting afterwards, and
Uh-huh.
then there's closing down the shrine, and so yeah. But it smells good. It
It's
does no harm.
That's right. And when you started doing that, did you notice a difference in yourself, in your being, in your intellect, in your emotional state?
Well, I still do.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to talk about, but yes, I mean, it would be terrible if I didn't. I'll tell you that.
And do you have
That I can't say for sure.
Oh, good. So there haven't been long stretches where you've not been able to meditate.
Not a day.
Not a day since 1992.
I mean, sometimes I've had to do it, like in a sitting in a chair because whatever circumstance I'm in. But that's one of the things you'd learn early on is say, yeah, you can actually do this type of sitting in a chair. Now, normally I'm on a zafu and a zabuton and what have you, but I can't sit while I'm driving, but I can sit while on the train. If I'm rushing out the door, if I slept in and
Right.
something. But
And
yeah,
do you practice any walking meditations as well?
I have, but not on a regular basis. Although sometimes in the summer, when I wear barefoot, basic the walking meditation as I was taught is just basically about feeling your foot in the ground, and it's very slow and methodical. So yeah, sure. But I mean, I hike a lot, which is also kind of meditation, but it's not really a discipline or a practice.
Right. And you mentioned Naropa. Is that where you met Ginsberg?
Yes,
There's
it
a
was.
picture somewhere online of Allen Ginsberg, and the photo credit is you.
Sure.
And I'm like, that's cool.
He was my teacher and friend for a number of years.
Uh-huh.
Sure. We were together up in this area once too. And spent late afternoon at Olana. And there's some photographs in the Ginsberg archive at Stanford of his trip to Olana. A few of us, hangers on. A beautiful situation.
Yeah. What a blast. He was your teacher in terms of Buddhism and meditation and poetry.
Well, he was with Anne Waldman co-founded the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics, where I was, and I mean for a time. And
That's at Naropa as well.
in Boulder. Yeah. So, yeah, he taught classes and he critiqued everyone's poems and was very engaged with the students for sure. I mean, everybody. That experience is what led to my life as it is, really, because I just graduated with a BA, and that was all well and good, of course, but then I realized going to Naropa that I didn't really know too much, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with my knowledge, but then engaging with this intense group of poets, students, teachers, that was that I knew that was going to lead to an interesting life, and I was not wrong.
Right. And so you said you just graduated with a BA, and where'd you graduate from, and what was the degree in?
Oh, my first degree was at University of Virginia, BA. Also, I went to Naropa, then I went back to Virginia, which was quite a stark contrast. I got an MA there, and then 10 years later, I got a PhD at Albany.
And so Virginia, the BA was in
English language and
English?
literature.
Okay.
Yeah, the canon, but it was basically
The canon.
reading Beowulf to Beckett, all of it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there are a lot of gaps, and that's when one of the things I learned at Naropa was that there were severe gaps. I don't really want to get into the details of that, but I had a lot to learn, even with a credentialed degree.
Right. Right. You mean you say the canon. I mean, there's been a lot of beef about, what the canon has been.
Well, yeah, that was a big problem in the 80s. I mean, I'm old enough so that
Right.
I got that degree in the mid 80s. And Virginia, with all due respect, didn't even have like cultural studies at that point. The number of black writers that I read to get my degree there, I could count on less than one hand. So, that's all right. I mean, it's not all right, but that's what it was. And, I grew from there for sure. I mean, like crazy.
Right. And do you teach any English literature now?
It depends on how you define literature, really. I am, as you probably know through your exhaustive research, I went off on a gigantic jag and with a research focus on digital poetry. And it's beginning with my dissertation, and then these books I've written, 2 monographs on digital poetry. So I teach it now. I'm teaching digital poetry again, although I'm not really practicing it as much. So is that literature? I'll call it. Do I teach literature that comes out of books? I do not.
Right.
I taught a course this past summer in AI poetry. So is that literature? Well, it is definitely a type of literature.
Right. Huh. And have you messed around with AI very much in your practice? So a composer and a writer and a poet?
Well, I haven't found too many uses for it, AI in specific, although yes, for years and years I used algorithmic processes and computer programs to write or to extend or alter or destroy writing. I got really into this concept that comes out of Brazilian modernism called anthropophagy, which is really kind of the foundation of Brazilian modernism, which is loosely translated as cannibalism. So, but this is cannibal. I mean, for the Brazilians at the beginning, there's a myth to that, which is actually real history. But in any case, this idea that we can make text out of text, there's a lot of reasons why I was thinking that was very interesting. And I still do, although I'm not doing it as much anymore. I'm not afraid to, but I went through many years of working with that, and also anagrams. So I have done a lot of kind of programmatic writing over time that is not just like I press a button and the machine happens, but it's really, I think the best works that are coming out of digital poetry and digital mechanisms are ones that are much more cyborgian, where the machine does some of the work and then a human does some of the work. Even the greatest AI poetry that I've seen has been edited by a human. Like, you're not just taking the raw output from GPT-2 or GPT-4 or ChatGPT or any of the number. There are many apps now, AI poetry apps. None of them are really good, actually, but it's still interesting to me.
Right.
So I've been interested in AI for a long time. My research has been in electronic writing. I have been on, exam committees for Australians writing about AI poetry and so on and so forth. So I have the knowledge about it, but I'm trying to avoid using AI as much as I can, even though I'm not against it.
Right. You just mentioned anagrams, and one of the things that comes up repeatedly when I'm looking at your stuff, starting with a song I really liked by your group, Neck Rotors / Nor Rockets. I'm like, oh, it's an anagram. And then on YouTube, you have a thing, and I'm going to play it right now if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Called Aleatory Constellation.
Those are the names of my daughters.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
But the visuals, and people like go to YouTube, look up look up Christopher Funkhouser and find this as a short video. And can we play this music? Great. Okay, but with the visual or the names, aleatory and constellation, breaking up into their letters, and then the letters forming different words
and anagrams. That's right.
Anagrams, yeah.
I did dozens of anagram text movies, and it's something I've really learned a lot from. I've learned a lot about language, and I learned about the software I was using, Flash.
Right.
A lot about it. And
when you're doing these things, do you use an anagram finder, or do you just get sort of Scrabble tiles and see what words you can make? Or
yes, I have to confess, I use the Internet Anagram server, which is on wordsmith.org, I believe. But I am interested, and I do scramble and play with words
right.
on my own too.
All right. Well, I think I've got it up here on my phone. I'm going to hold it up to the microphone. Aleatory constellation.
Alternate.
Concentrate. Objectives. Energy of nidification. And serious events. Innate devotion. Largest. Laughter. Attaining whatever thoughts lead. Yearning outward. Bettering the native society.
Yeah, the thing is, that piece is not. I don't think that's. I mean, I guess it is anagrams. Of course, it is, but it's also it comes from the acrostic form. So the words are Aleatory, and then in constellation, I spell those like the aleatory and constellation is down the left hand margin.
Yeah.
With the words, and then break those up. But this is about it's about the granularity of language, really. And, I thought it was pretty fascinating to get down to language at the level of the letter. And and it's amazing, what words you can make out of words. And that poem you just played has this word nidification in it. Wow, it gave me a chance to use nidification, which is a word that I didn't know, but that the server must have fed to me.
And what does that mean, nidification?
We'd have to look it up.
Oh, well, I'm asking the artist. Now,
I should know. I wish I did know, but I love the word.
But you did at one point. You're like, oh, nidification. And
that's why we have computers, so you don't have to remember everything.
And do you find you remember less now that all this knowledge is right there at your fingertips?
Some things. It gives me a chance to foreground certain types of memory, for sure.
Right.
And not have to worry about everything. And I do use dictionary.com all the time.
Right.
Just as a writer, you don't want to keep repeating yourself. So yeah, thesaurus is helpful, but there's digital thesaurus. And I think the OED, the online version, that's got to be the best resource for language and writers there is anywhere.
Do you own a physical copy of the OED?
Yes, a two volume.
The 2-volume, okay. Because the other is what, 26 volumes? Or?
Yes, and I don't even know if they really make those anymore, because the online version of it is so helpful and so. For so many reasons, it is it's worth it.
Right.
You can do, you can, if you want to know all the words in which R is followed by S in the language, it'll give you a list of them, and stuff like that. That comes in handy for a process poet or someone who plays with language a lot.
And what exactly is a process poet?
But as someone who uses who comes up with concepts and uses processes, like the anagrammatic shift, I would call that process. And
I remember reading one time about William Burroughs cutting up texts and rearranging the things.
He's famous for that.
Yeah.
And also things like the Oulipo, which you may know some about. That was a group it was started in France. It was mathematicians, and they came up with all sorts of formulaic ways to writing exercises, like write a novel without using the letter E.
Oh, geez.
And they're famous for the N+7, which is like you replace the nouns with the seventh noun after it in the dictionary, and that, that's fun. It's almost like it's a game. It's game-like.
I've never heard of N+7.
No, all right. Well,
I heard of the no E thing.
Right. Well, so I play with this, and it's. I mean, I like to play with language.
So when you read about something like the N+7, are you like, oh my, I want to try that, and then you go out and give it a shot?
Yeah, like 35 years ago, sure.
Right.
Yeah, but now there's software that does it. There's an N+7 generator online. You could take the Declaration of Independence, throw it in there, and it gives you probably a more, what I'm saying, it gives you a playful version of it.
Right.
And you can use these things with all kinds of intent beyond nonsense. And I don't really even believe in nonsense. So
How come?
because I think there's always a logic to whatever it is, and it reflects something, whether it's a computational process or insanity or
But
whatever.
an inherent logic, or that we can find
A
patterns in
poetic logic,
which is,
an artistic logic.
but still, in the machine or in our us as an audience for that.
Hopefully in us as a producer and audience.
So both.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. And have you ever attempted to make something that lived outside of a logic? That rebuffed all attempts to sort of like see it in a logical way, or hear it or read it?
I'm gonna have to say probably.
Right.
Although that's hard to say too, because even say with spontaneous music or improvisation, there's got to be, even if I'm just like throwing my fingers around, there's a logic to it, which is throwing my fingers around, no, yes, of course, Norm. I would have to say yes. I've done lots of non-intentional work, lots of it, just because it's almost the nature of algorithmic writing. You do surrender a certain amount of control to the machine.
Right.
A lot of agency goes into that. Now, I don't have to decide whether it's worth showing to somebody or not. And,
Right.
There's a relationship to me and many, many others between language and sound and music. So sometimes the logic is just how the words sound, right?
Right.
And I think that's legit, or even sound poetry where it can be syllabic.
Right.
That's completely just about the sounds or non-sounds or gaps in sounds. And so, but I don't have a problem with that, just because, I don't think that personal subjectivity needs to be the central to all creative writing or creative expression.
Right.
It's okay to just put things together that are provocative, to get people to think or jar their ordinary sensibility.
Right. I'm thinking of John Cage, like rolling the dice or throwing the I Ching or whatever.
Absolutely.
To compose outside of the constraints of logic or ego or any of that stuff.
I can't do it for my day job, but I can do it anytime other than that. I mean, I can do it, actually. I do it in my day job, but I can't give a lecture that is, baloney.
Right. But, you said you can't do it in your day job. And I thought, well, that's kind of the niche that you've carved out for yourself.
Good point.
In a
Yes.
way.
I have to say that yes, but not when it comes to academic publishing and, things like that. That the things that validate scholarship still revolve around communicating things to researchers, to students, to the world.
Right. All right. Well, speaking about like chance operations and stuff, what does aleatory mean? This is your child's name.
Means a throw of the dice.
Yeah. And how did you choose that name for? Is this your eldest?
No, second.
Second,
She's the
okay.
younger daughter.
Okay.
Well, this is a big topic, Norm,
We
and
go- you keep-
it's going to be
You've
embarrassing to
got
her.
2 passes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
passing on,
I'm
on
not passing.
discussing
I won't pass on
teenage
it.
daughter stuff.
As a poet, I never felt obliged to give my children, our children, my wife Amy and I have 2 children, and I was never felt obliged to give them ordinary names. Now, backstory probably is that for 200 years or so, the name Avery had been in every single generation in one of the children. It's family name.
Oh.
And I was not interested in continuing that tradition just
Right.
because I wasn't interested in that tradition. So, but I knew I could be creative with it. My wife is also a very good artist and, creative person, Hampshire College, and so on and so forth. So all I knew is I had to have a grandparent friendly nickname. I could name the kids whatever, but there had to be a name that was acceptable.
I love that.
So with Constellation, our older daughter, friends to your
Stella.
daughter, yes, that name came about because of Mallarmé. Speaking of the dice, right? He wrote the famous poem, "Throw of the dice will never abolish chance." And for Mallarmé, constellation was this big word and concept, so that's where that came from. And aleatory came from John Cage, also from my research. So the names came out of my research, and not really names, but they have nickname names, sort of thing. So you asked, I told.
Thank you. That's what this is what the show's sort of about.
And it was nice with constellation and aleatory. You go look at the internet book of names. Neither one of those names is in there, so I have to feel good about that.
Yeah, that's good.
We know someone who named their goat Constellation after Constellation, so we're actually passing the name on as nominology.
That's lovely.
And
And what are they up to now? Your wonderful children.
Stella is in Charleston and moving back to this area in the spring. And Alias,
Nice.
she is a student at NJIT, my place of employment for 27 years.
Wow.
Yes.
That's nice. And what is she studying there?
She is studying business. Business. There is a business school, in financial tech and that kind of thing at NJIT, which is a STEM school.
New Jersey Institute of Technology.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And it's what you do. And actually, and rate my professor.
Huh.
One of the students said, it is so nice to find this kind of a class and this kind of an establishment. To find this really poetic, poetry focused class in a technology school.
I'm glad to hear that. The charge that was given to me when I started there in 1997 was that I was, put on the faculty to help engineers and scientists be more creative. And I did, in grad school, I did learn some computer programming. I did a very early online publication before the web even, using, line editors and all this stuff. So I could relate to some of the technology, or at least appreciate, the processes and what algorithms were about and what could be done. So yeah, and you'd appreciate this. They started me teaching graphic design. Well, I never studied graphic design at all, but having to learn to teach software and all Photoshop and et cetera, and layout programs, it was all helpful to me. Really, it all worked together nicely. I did learn from that, and sure, if I can pass along the transmissions that came to me from teachers somehow, which were so valuable, then I have to, right? Because I go in there and I'm very sympathetic to the students, and I want to promote creativity and creative energy, and expose them to things that they will not have been exposed to otherwise. Otherwise, what's the point? I have all the special knowledge. I better do something with it.
But usually that special knowledge is passed down to other people who are specializing in that kind of special knowledge or thereabouts. I love your brief of come in and help boost the creativity of these scientists.
They had me early on. They had me teaching cultural history, like a course that everybody on the whole campus had to take. And I taught cultural history through poetry.
Love that.
Only. No other textbooks, just poetry.
So is that still sort of your brief at NJIT?
Not exactly. I got involved. I was an administrator administrating an undergraduate program there in communication and media for a long time, and then we didn't have a big faculty. So yeah, I had to continue teaching things like graphic composition and whatnot. Now my big thing there is podcasting. I set up a podcasting studio, and I've been teaching podcasting courses since 2019, and that's been, although it is a lot of work and I have to listen to a lot of student podcasts, it's also very exciting and interesting to me, and I can do it. And I teach digital poetry as well.
I imagine that's a pretty popular class, the podcasting thing.
Again, it's one of these classes that people are really psyched to have access to, because
Right.
my students, it's surprisingly multidisciplinary. Like I get biology students and computer science students and architecture students and engineers. It is attracting people from all around the university, and that makes it really kind of interesting and exciting. And we spend a lot of time listening to podcasts in that class. Like every class, we have a listening session. The student has to bring a podcast from their universe in. So I'm also exposed to a lot of things through that I never would have found on my own or listened to on my own. Things like Joe Rogan, for example, I never would go to, but if a student brings it in because they want us to hear it,
Oh, and what did they bring in, like a 2-minute or a 5-minute
it was like
snippet?
20-minute.
Okay.
We listen to 20-minute. We have 20-minute listening sessions every class.
Wow.
At least.
How long does the class
Sometimes.
last?
I teach 3-hour classes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's it's good for me to have different things to do there, and so I never felt like I've been stuck in a rut, and
Right.
then now I'm enjoying it. I'll be there probably another 10 years or so. Who knows? I mean, the hardest part of that is like getting to Newark.
Right.
So
And how do you get to Newark? It sounds like you got to drive.
you don't have to, but it's twice as long to take the train. It's fine. I'm not complaining. I go and stay. I teach 2 consecutive days, and then so I stay overnight down in Westchester or in Newark, and no big deal. I mean, I may finish out my career somewhere up here, but I'm happy with what I got.
Right.
The school has been very. I did not know about this niche of humanities I'm teaching the humanities and social sciences, so I didn't know about this niche of humanities within the tech school, but it has been really good. The school values what I do. They support my research, and it's been great. And plus, I've been working in Newark for almost 3 decades, and that's an intense cultural experience, and also has been very beneficial to me.
In what ways?
Well, in a lot of ways, because I had observed Newark previous to that, and once I got inside it and lived there, I could see so many things I couldn't see from the outside, culturally speaking.
Sure.
And need to go into all the details, but like the Ironbound, for example, fascinating place, 1 square mile neighborhood that Portuguese businessmen started buying in the early 20th century, and now it's like going to Brazil or Portugal.
Right.
Then you have the other part of Newark, which is the Black culture, and one of the things your research may or may not have shown is that I met Amiri Baraka very early on, a month or 2 after I moved there, and then I worked with him for 5 or 6 years selling books. I started his website and was a patron at his salon and whatever, recorded him, and they priceless. It's just a priceless experience to have access to someone like that because of where I ended up.
Right.
If I had ended up staying in Santa Cruz or Boulder or wherever, I did meet incredible people there too. But
Right.
Newark is I'm glad that that's where I ended up.
And apart from at least one young woman from Rhinebeck, where do most of the students come from at NJIT?
Oh, it's heavy in New Jersey, but it's also in the top 5 most diverse universities in the country. So India, China, I mean, all over the world.
Wow.
It's very, very well. Rutgers Newark is right across the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Newark, and the two of them are both in the top 5, culturally diverse universities in the country. So, that makes sense, right? Because it's New York,
Right.
it's in New Jersey, it's a tri-state.
Right.
So, yeah, it's hard to say, but a lot of Jersey kids, for sure, because it's in-state tuition. I mean, really, it's a state school. So,
Right.
someone from New Jersey can go there for not an arm and a leg.
Right. And has aleatory signed up for any of your classes?
Not yet. She did sign up for a sorority, though. I did, it was interesting. Hey, Norm, we have almost finished here.
That's my
You
job.
haven't even asked me the questions that I figured you were
Tell
going
me.
to ask
Well,
me.
we got 3.5
How
minutes.
did you end up in Rhinebeck? And so
Yeah,
on and
come
so
on,
forth?
lay
I
it-
thought that was what this show was about.
Well, I'm going to sit back and smoke a cigarette. Ask yourself the questions and answer them for me.
Oh no,
I'm retired.
Well, yeah, it's fine.
But also, you have.
You told me you were going to ask me how I ended up in Rhinebeck.
Well, I said that's a typical show.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
now that we're here,
We're not a typical show.
do tell me,
Oh.
how did you end up in Rhinebeck, for crying out loud?
I know. Well, I'm glad we did. Let me say that to begin with. I had been to Rhinebeck once when I was in graduate school, and I went to a performance out in a field near Bard, which was Quasha and Chuck Stein and Gary Hill. And I've gone to this pizza joint that's now Terrapin, so I remember that. But then, it's long story short, we were living in the Delaware Water Gap area of New Jersey, and we came up for a visit. And then Amy said she liked it. She applied for a job at Olana. She got the job at Olana up in Hudson, so that's how we ended up in Rhinebeck. Little did we know that compared to where we were living, it was like Europe here, and really a fascinating shift to come up here. And so we've thrived on it. It's been so important to it's like my creative hub. So many good things happening here with radio, music, poetry. So
And did you meet your bandmates here?
because our daughters were in 4th grade together, yes, at the
Nice.
terribly named Chancellor Livingston School.
Yeah. Well, there's murmurs always of changing that the name of that.
Good.
Yeah.
No problem. So yeah, I met them there, and then we discovered our common interests, and yeah, sure enough, these are great people too. I mean, the people we have come across.
Right.
It's very nice.
All right. We got 20 seconds left. Is there another question I forgot to ask you?
I should be asking you questions, I suppose.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I'm glad that we met. You and I mean, I knew Andrea first, but then I met you through your artwork and your lecture or talk in downtown Rhinebeck, and that was a good night. That's when
Oh,
I
right.
learned about your artwork.
Oh, I remember
and
that.
That was fabulous.
that was
So
really fun.
I really value what you do, and thanks for having me on the program
Well, thanks
tonight.
for coming, and thanks for wrapping it up for me. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Have a great Friday and a fabulous weekend. Thanks to everybody at RadioFreeRhinecliff.org, especially Jen Hammoud, running it all right now. Have a great weekend. Christopher Funkhouser, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Norm. It was wonderful.